there, social relationships forged over the internet. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, don't forget to like and subscribe so that the algorithm will bless me, and so that like all good things under capitalism, like our hobbies and interests and the things that make us uniquely us, I can monetize it. And maybe this will transform into a stable source of income due to financial circumstances that I will be discussing in this video. As the title suggests, I am changing careers in the middle of a global pandemic. Or, you know what? If people don't act right, this could very well be the beginning of the pandemic. Like the result of my laser eye surgery, hindsight is 2020. And no, it's not to become something financially unviable like a full-time YouTuber. Can you imagine the amount of desperation that they must feel and the amount of narcissism that someone has to have to just talk in front of a camera for hours at a time? It could never be me. To start off, I have moved out of the big city, Canada's discount New York, and into a place that I like to describe as an absolute bastion of cultural homogeneity. I have moved to a small town that is quite well known for its multiculturalism and diversity and other equity-based buzzwords that people picked up from last June 2020.
Hello, this is Crusty Editing Nicole. I'm here to give the disclaimer that this is comedy. It's a a teehee. And I do actually love where I'm living right now. I got quite tired of living in the big city and the busyness of it. But just because it's comedy doesn't mean it's not true. So before anyone cancels me, here's a graph of the census data where the dark blue represents the city, the light blue is the rest of Ontario, and the red arrow is me. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. Carry on. Bye.
Before all this, I worked in clinical research up until last Friday, where I officially handed in my badge, and then I peaced out and yeeted. So for those of you who don't know, clinical research looks to improve clinical practice by running trials on patients. I worked with cancer patients specifically for interventional clinical trials. So when I describe it in terms of the overall bigger picture that we were working towards, it was really interesting work. It is actually in alignment with my future goals to continue working in cancer care. But in terms of what was actually done in the day-to-day, was a wee bit boring, innit? My role was very much a desk job, and as someone who is a self-proclaimed social introvert, my favorite part was actually directly interacting with patients. I really loved being involved with their care, getting to hear their different stories, being able to celebrate on the days where they finished their courses of radiation or chemotherapy. While I liked the vision of what we were working towards, the aspects that I loved most in clinical research and about my job, I didn't actually get to do as much. That, and if you've ever wanted to crush someone's soul very slowly, get them to work a desk job.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
The overall monotony and routine and lack of excitement truly killed me slowly. Contrary to popular belief and what the internet suggests about aging, 24 is actually very young. You don't actually turn into dust after your 21st birthday. So the idea of me, a young 24-year-old, having to sit at a desk for the next 40 years of my life. So you may be wondering,
Nicole, what are you switching to?
Drum roll, please. I will be going back to school for nursing.
Nicole, you're Filipino. Shouldn't you already be a nurse? Aren't all your cousins nurses?
Shut up. First of all, the reason why there are so many Filipino nurses has to do with American colonialism influencing the school system in the Philippines to create an expendable and exportable source of labor for the USA. And second of all, nursing is a great career path. You know what? My people knew what they were doing. So since I already have my bachelor's, this is going to be a 2-year accelerated program. So when I graduate, I will be 26. This is also a very intensive program in that I will have 6 straight semesters of school and only 2 months off for the next 2 years. The burnout rate for this program is pretty high, so I will be prioritizing my overall general health, and for the first time since I was 14, I will not be working. I am once again asking for your financial support.
Nicole, isn't it a little silly to try and switch careers in the middle of the pandemic?
If we don't get our climate change catastrophe under control, isn't everything a little silly? So if you're thinking of switching careers and here are some of the things that I thought about that maybe you want to think about too. Very first thing that I'd encourage you to do is to think about your values. If you're going to pursue something because you're dissatisfied with your current career path, maybe think back on your values and then try to find a career that aligns with that. Or if something is not in line with your values, for example, you decide to get a job selling nuclear weapons to third world countries that specifically target poor, incarcerated women of color. So basically you want to be a politician. Would you be able to compartmentalize your work from your life? Then again, maybe that is one of your values, in which case this YouTube channel is not for you. Joe Rogan, Gary Vee, they have like 3 million podcast episodes. You could go listen to them. Another example, one of my great life values is being able to put food on the table and being able to eat. I really like the nursing model of care, which is a lot more holistic and patient-oriented as to how it approaches treatment, as opposed to other health professions which follow more of a scientific reductionism or disease-centered model of care. Illness and disability and everything in that realm, and it really requires a certain amount of vulnerability to entrust others to care for you, and I want to be able to help and contribute towards that. Secondly, once you narrow down a job or field that is in line with your values, what kind of job security or benefits exist to switching? The reason why I am going into nursing is as follows: job security, unions, pay, and flexibility. So job security, let's be real, people will never stop getting sick, and when they need healthcare, who will be there? Especially in a world that privatizes healthcare instead of making it a universal basic human right. Furthermore, there's a projected nursing shortage of around 2 million registered nurses who are set to retire in the year 2022. And guess what year I'm graduating? 2022, baby. Next, unions. For those of you who don't know what a union is, it's an organized group of workers that collectively work together and advocate for things like wages, benefits, work hours, making sure you have safe working conditions, making sure you have proper personal protective equipment during a pandemic, things like that. This year alone, I had a gentle tizzle over the past 8 months with the HR trying to get a raise of, guess how much? 88 cents on my hourly wage. Workers should be able to unite and demand fairer working conditions and wages, because I'm tired of having to do it by myself. Thirdly, pay. I see the paychecks of new grad nurses proportionate to the amount of school that they did, and I am ready. No amount of money will ever justify the emotional, physical, and verbal abuse that nurses face on a daily basis. But I worked in retail. I worked in customer service. These people weren't even sick. I was verbally, physically, and emotionally abused for $11 an hour. So for sure, I am ready to do it for 36. Finally, career flexibility. So with the current licensing exam for nurses, you'll be able to practice in both Canada and the US if you pass this exam. It's called the NCLEX. Furthermore, so as long as I maintain the practice requirements required for my license, I can switch pretty easily in between units or into different fields. I'm not saying or implying that I have commitment issues, but if I ever get tired of one area, I could switch into nephrology, I can switch into ICU nursing, ER nursing. If I'm tired of shift work, if I ever want to relive the experience of having my bottom create a divot in my non-ergonomic chair, I can move back to clinical research. I can go to outpatient clinics. I can work as a public health nurse. I could become a nurse educator. If I develop a sense of self-hatred that pushes me into academia, I could become a professor, policy work, consulting. There's a lot of flexibility in this field. So the third thing to consider about switching careers, are you able to afford the education or further training that you need financially? Is this career choice economically viable? A lot of people my age tend to return to school without thinking as to whether or not it's a good financial investment. Going to grad school is like the new getting bangs. If one of your friends starts saying that out of nowhere, to call for help, check in on them. Of course, let me say that education should be free, but it's not, and dreams cost money. So for that, I present to you the Grad School Return on Investment Calculator. Here you can enter things like the current salary you may have, the amount of money that you're projected to lose out on based on the amount of time that you spend in school. So for me, in my last video, I actually did a breakdown of my budget. So you'll know that over the next 2 years, I'll be losing out on $110,000. You can also enter in how much student debt you're expected to accumulate, rate of interest of the loans that you are taking out. So for me, it would be $20,000, as well as the cost of tuition and the anticipated starting salary that you would have once graduating or finishing your training. The fourth thing to consider is if you actually have the capacity to be a student again. So I mentioned that I'm giving up my stable source of income. However, I'm pretty much used to it because I didn't experience that much lifestyle inflation once I started working. Another thing in terms of being a student again is that now I have a stronger sense of self-worth, and I cannot be manipulated in the same ways that I was when I was 17. When I was 17, I wanted to be liked by everyone. everyone so badly. And now I'm very firm in my boundaries, can no longer be emotionally manipulated or have my labor exploited through the dangling promise of a letter of reference. If I have a last minute essay due tonight at 11:59 p.m. and I haven't started, not only will I not do it or try to finish it in 2 hours, but I will sleep at 10 p.m. and wake up the next day feeling refreshed and without any sense of guilt whatsoever, because I have both rigid boundaries as well as rigid self-care practices. This isn't because I don't value other people, I just value myself so much more. And I really don't care if I disappoint other people, so as long as I don't disappoint myself. This is something that I actually didn't do the first time around when I was in school, but now it's something that I'm going to be taking more of an active step to doing. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna be a human being with interests and hobbies outside of school, going to focus on my overall health and overall take things as they come. So those are the 4 things that ultimately impacted my decision to enter a career change and go back to school, albeit under pandemic circumstances. Thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe as I will have new videos every week.
I'm trying. I'm fucking trying. I've only been doing this for 2 fucking days.
And we can further develop this very lovely parasocial relationship that we have. Bye! The pros of studying in the middle of nowhere is that I am not in a COVID hotspot. The cons of studying in the middle of nowhere is that I'm in the middle of nowhere.